Hello chess fans, today I want to show you a recap of a tournament I played in and that you can play in at the first link in the description. So the first game happened between a 2075 as white and a 2450 as black. So the 2450 decided to go for the Caro-Kann, and we saw the main line and we saw the Tartakower variation, and after takes, generally this position is considered to be better for white, but black is really solid here as has no clear weaknesses and there's no easy way for white to break into position. But instead of that, we saw knight g3, which is maybe a more ambitious try, but after h5, it seems like black had more space in this game. So I'm going to skip ahead a little bit here to this position. And basically, I'm going to claim that black is kind of a little bit better here because of the fact that white has no obvious breaks, and black just has more space on the king side. And when there's no obvious breaks, you have to look at basically the flanks of the board, and here white has nothing on the queen side, and black just has a lot of space here. So I believe that black's better here. So after bishop e3, something like this, we see a Carlsbad structure where black pretty much has more space on the king side and white pretty much has nothing. So this is slightly better for black. Castles, but here we saw black get over ambitious. Maybe here castling, maybe moving the queen out of the way, going for this classic plan here, and maybe later thinking about expanding on the king side. But instead black decided that they should expand on the king side right away. And after rook e1, g5, bishop h2, here we can see black is simply way too overcommitted. Here black played rook c8 to stop the move c4 because otherwise their center was crumbling. And here take a few seconds to see if you can find the move for white. White, the 2070 here, played an excellent move c4. Very thematic, breaking open the center when the king is here. And after takes rook c1, notice you can't take here because then you lose both rooks. So they decided to play queen a6, and after d5 opening the center, here white was completely winning. e5, and here the best move here is hard to find. After here takes here, this is probably the easy part of it to find. But after bishop g6, the position looks pretty unclear because you have two pieces on pre. But now this move would have been even stronger. Now if you go back, knight e6 and bishop g6 and other threats coming, this position should be lost. Or sorry, not knight there. Bishop a4 instead. But instead bishop c2, and after bishop takes c2, queen takes c2, it's really hard to defend this move, queen g6. And here maybe the best option for black was to run the king to the queen side, but instead black decided to run the king to the king side. But after queen e5, there's no way to defend both these threats and the threat on the knight. So here they went for queen d6, and after a few moves, white threatened to repeat, black didn't want to repeat. We saw g4, and here after rook e4, the game would be over. This is simply just mate. But white missed that and played queen e4. Not sure what this move does. It looks to go here, but after king g6, there's pretty much no threats. But what black blunders back with f5, giving up a pawn for pretty much no reason. Instead of that, knight c5 could have been played, trying to trade off pieces. But after rook g6, the position becomes very hard to play, and the players had very low time here, so there's going to be a lot of mistakes made. Okay, here rook takes e5. It's not that hard a move to find. I don't think you're threatening mate in one, and the only way to stop it is like this, and now we'd be attacking the queen. So this would be game over. But with 20 seconds on the clock, the player played knight takes f8, which unfortunately this endgame is pretty hard to win, especially when you have like 10 seconds on the clock. And white ended up losing this game, not pretty much because they played badly, but here they had like 5 seconds and they blundered this move, which is unfortunate. But okay, so the 2450 gets to squeak out a win from a completely lost position. Such is life. So next game I'm going to look at is one of my games where I won with the bishop pair. So I'm rated around 2500 and my opponent was around 1900. So g3, we saw this weird fianchetto, and I decided just to play normally. And here my opponent pinned me, and after h6, probably they should just go back. And you know, bishop g5 doesn't make much sense. But after takes, I just have the bishop pair, and now I think I did a good job of showing basically why you can't be doing this. So I just played naturally, queen d7 connecting the rooks, knight e3, I have to go back. There I go back, f4. Now f4 doesn't really do anything, and it wasn't really scared of. I wasn't really scared of that. I was more so scared of knight f4, knight h5, and after I go back, queen g4. And I thought that after bishop g6, knight f4, like he might have the chance to go for like some sort of perpetual, and I was thinking about what to do there, but then he quickly played knight g4. So here he had no play. I played b4, going for minority attack. Now okay, if he takes, I take, and then okay, I have huge squares here. So instead he went for knight e5, which I think was a bad move in view of takes and takes. So he took there. Again, I think he should have taken here, but it doesn't really help his cause because after this, I just have these two nice open lines, the nice bishop cutting the board in half, the other bishop cutting the queen side, and he has no counterplay on the king side. So here, clearly, I would be better. Takes. And now he just has this weakness here. I went rook a b8, knight c1, a4. Now if knight b3, I have a4. I went for queen b5, attacking the knight. Now here, I thought he should have probably defended it, but he didn't. Knight f4, rook bc8. Now I didn't want to play rook here because I thought that okay, he can get some sort of counterplay, but again I think I was not thinking straight here, because after something like this, I would just win the game on the spot. But instead of that, I went here. And notice that this bishop is doing an excellent job cutting the board in half here. And here I went queen c4. Again, queen b3 should have been better with the same idea to take this, but in the case of this, I would have rook bishop a3. I went queen c4, and after rook fc1, I went queen b3 now, threatening here. And yeah, so I pretty much wasted the move, but I didn't think it made a difference. And here he sacked the exchange. It's not really better if you go here, because after something like this falls, the whole position crumbles after like here, bishop b4, like it's just a terrible position. Sacked the exchange. I traded off some pieces, and then here we got into an endgame where I managed to win. And so that was the third game, or second game. Now we're going to look at a game between a 2450 as white and a 2000 as black. And so the 2450 started off with some very modern kind of stuff. This e3 move is not very that common, and I think for a good reason, because after the move d5, we transpose to a line of the Caro-Kann where usually white's supposed to win this pawn, but in this case black can just take back, and so this should be slightly better for black, I think. So d6, but instead we saw this sort of hyper-mon setup, and black continues to basically try to put pressure on the position. But this to me is similar to an Alekhines, where black really doesn't have much compensation for the fact that white has all this space. And yes, white's given up their e pawn for the c pawn, but I think white can be considered better here also with the bishop pair. Takes, and so white decides to give the bishop pair up, and I wasn't really sure why this was played, but the idea, I guess, is to get rid of the bishop pair and then go d4. It isn't the best idea in the position. Maybe the best idea is just to continue with pressure with a move like g4, gaining space, but this is also a very reasonable idea. And here black went for here, and instead of this, after something like takes, I think that black is pretty much dominating the dark squares here, and white doesn't really have any easy way to get counterplay, so black would have been equal here, but instead we saw this position. It's about equal, and excuse me, here white played the move bishop b4, and after the trade, black can be considered to be a little bit better because of white's bad structure. But basically, when you have a bad structure and a pass pawn, the simple rule goes pass pawns must be pushed. So here white pushed the pass pawn, got a lot of counterplay, and this position eventually black made a blunder with low time on the clock. Again, here, maybe king f8 is simplest because of the fact that, okay, there's no way to break through. Knight e4 takes here, doesn't do anything because I can take here. And black should be winning this eventually, but it will take a lot of time because white has a lot of weaknesses, but black is generally passive. For example, rook e8 next might be a good move. But instead, king g2, and rook b7 is a pretty bad move here. Again, king f8 should have been played. After f4, knight c4. Knight e4 here, again, is not a very good move because you're threatening knight f6. Simple, just get out of the way, king f8. But again, black blundered here. And again, the 2450 managed to come out with another win. So now we're going to look at the final game, which is between me and the 2450. So 2500 versus 2450. So this was one of the most disappointing games for me because I thought the 2450 was in pretty bad shape because he kept on losing to players far below his rating. But again, we're going to see what happened here. So I decided to go for a Caro-Kann. He went h6. Now the main line goes with h4, and here I highly recommend you look at this gambit with bishop g5. I have like a 90% win rate with this. But instead of that, h6, I went for g4 here. And now here you have pretty much two moves. You have the old move, which was h5. Now this used to be the move, and this is liked by the engine, but in my opinion, it's pretty hard to play. And like as you can probably tell that the top games here are pretty much all with this line. Now knight c3 I think recently has become a lot more popular of a move, and I think is a lot easier to understand. The idea of knight c3 is that we want to prevent c5 at all costs. Now here they can play queen c8, and after bishop d2 they can't go for c5 because of takes here, so they'd have to go for e6, and then we see after bishop e3 they don't have any option to go c5. Or in this particular position they actually do. For example, if c5, knight f3. But I guess they're passive enough and we have all our pieces developed. But instead of that, he went for e6 right away, which is definitely a good move. But here you can see, yeah, why is the bishop there? It remains to be seen. It's possible the bishop would be better on c8. Here we went bishop e3, stopping this, and he went for c5 anyways, which after this is just a pawn sacrifice. After d4, we see that black is down a pawn. So we get to this position. Instead of that, probably what should have been played here is takes to misplace the knight, and after something like h5, because we don't want to allow h5 ourselves, knight e7, knight e2. Defending here, it's hard to claim that white is that much better. Apparently the engine says his position is round about plus 0.6, so black definitely does have compensation, but obviously white should be preferred. But instead of that, bishop takes c5, a little bit too over ambitious, taking right away. And after takes, white here remains about +2 because we're up a pawn and black has no compensation, not even the bishop pair. So takes, knight d6, and now black's king is even misplaced. I went for c4 to stop knight d5, bishop c5, knight e4, and now the bishop just goes back. I developed my king. I went a3 here, and here probably I should go g5. Now what I was worried about is after knight f5 I'd have to be tied down, but apparently I can do something like this, and if he ever takes here, something like this, and the bishop just gets trapped. Now I didn't see that, but instead of that I thought he could play king e7 and then I'd still be tied down. But then again, after c5, for example, if he takes and takes on h4, I have the nice move knight d4, and there's no way to defend here. If you think about it, if rook's d8, we could even go for here quite simply. And then, okay, if the knight returns, we can go takes here with a fork and attacking here. So this would not be good for black. So, yeah, basically I just had to see that the pawn on h4 was tactically defended. I didn't, so I took here instead. And after here, I thought the position is still winning, and it still is. But after rook d3, b4, black seemingly gets some counterplay after knight d5, which I thought my position should be completely winning. All my pieces are better. I'm up a pawn, but after here, f6, here's where I think I made pretty much the fatal error. So after knight d6, takes, I thought g6 was just equalizing. And according to the engine, this position is not equal. I found it hard to believe how I could win here. I know I have this nice knight here, but it just didn't look like there's any sort of break in this position. So I decided to go for takes. And after takes, I didn't really think about my move here. I just wanted to go quickly, and here knight f2 would have been winning. So if either capture here, I can go for here, they go back, and then take here. And the idea is after take, something like check here, takes, and takes, I'd be up a piece. And if they take back, I'd just take here. And I have the 2 pieces for the exchange, I'd be winning. So they can't take the pawn, and if they take it this way, similar things happen, except this time with rook d6. So they can't take the pawn, and what are they supposed to do? Probably just go back so they don't get hit with knight g4, in which case I could either defend or go here. And the position should be better for me, but I missed that and took here. And yeah, again, I don't really know what went through my head here because I played f5, which doesn't make any sense. And I was thinking that I had already played b5, and I was thinking about this position, takes, and like something like takes, and I was thinking I would be winning here because my rook defends here and all his pawns are hanging, but I kind of just missed that I didn't play b5. Now b5 was also a very good move here, and again, similar ideas with rook takes to y. That is unplayable, so I pretty much hallucinated that I played b5 here, and I played the move f5, which is kind of just very, very bad on my part. I wasn't even low on time. Then we get this position, and here, okay, I was already extremely tilted. I was getting lower on the clock when I had been up a few minutes the entire game, and yeah, this is pretty much how you lose completely winning positions. So as we see here, my main mistake was getting a little bit too sort of antsy to win. Here, knight f5 to d6, and it's really hard for black to make any progress. It's completely my fault. And then here I thought that it would just be a simple draw. I thought that he'd do this, but he didn't. He played for the win, which was definitely a good idea by him. And then I eventually ended up getting it to the draw, as you can see here. Takes, and after rook h2, it's actually just a draw because king and rook versus knight and rook is a draw. But instead of that, I had about 6 seconds on the clock. I took here, which is just very dumb, clearly losing. And here, yeah, I should have saved the draw, but okay. That's what usually happens when, yeah, some players go on tilt. When you start winning a game like crazy, it was +5, +6, and then you start losing. It's hard to keep your nerves, especially in faster time control games. You ended up getting angry. You're like, why did I do that? Why did I do that? You can't think about the past. But yeah, you just need to leave those things go. And yeah, great job to my opponent here for trying to look for counterplay at all times. And yeah, again, after the game, I was like, oh my god, how did I lose that? That position was the easiest position to win ever. But yeah, kudos to my opponent for continuing to play, and yeah, never resign. So if you like that video or you want to be featured in one of these videos with one of your games, please remember to join the team in the first link in the description and subscribe as well. And I'll see you guys in the next one.